Guys, with the time that we have left, let's go ahead and look to the future, because we've been looking at all of the things that we wanted to get done, and J6, Corey Mills, but there are still so many things that we will be looking into with Blaze Media. So what are some of the investigations that you guys are wanting to still dive into, or even if it's something that we've touched before, you want to know more information on?
Well, the biggest thing I think that's happened in the last, if we're doing a recap of the last year anyway, is there was a couple of assassination attempts of our current president right now, who was then, of course, the candidate for the presidency back at the time of those assassination attempts. And we're learning more about those individuals and the principal characters involved then than we knew now. And a lot of this information that we're learning, once again, the superstar in the Trump administration right now keeps coming back to Tulsi Gabbard's desk. And I will tell you that I met with some of her own people yesterday, or the day before yesterday, rather, in D.C., and they are gushing. These are people that work for her. They're gushing about how resolute she is, and there's the amazement in their faces when they talk about her is you never see that from anybody else when they talk about their, whether you're talking to the staff members of a congressman or you're talking with somebody that works at the FBI or works for one of the other agencies. You don't see this type of effusive praise that you get when you talk to them about Tulsi. And she is the one that's producing the results as a result of that. So she's not only infecting her own staff and her own team with her own resoluteness to get to the bottom of these things, that as a result, she's producing these results. And one of the things that we're going to see results from, probably coming from her office, I can't imagine that they're going to come from anywhere. I can't imagine they're going to come from Secret Service. I don't believe anything's going to come out of FBI of anything substantial right now. But if we get it from Secret Service or FBI, it's going to be as a result of the work that Odie and I has done through her team at the DIG being the Directors Initiative Group is what they call it. And that's a directive from the president, again, himself, to get to the bottom of these certain things. And this, obviously, the president is interested in what happened in those assassination attempts against his own life.
And we know that Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, has been the one in charge leading this document dump of all the Russiagate information. That's what we've already seen. And we've seen headlines, Steve, that there are whistleblowers that are saying, I want to go directly to Gabbard because I actually believe and trust her. Yep. And they are going directly to her and giving her the information. So, because we know how bad the deep state is, they don't know, can I go to my superior over here? Do I go to this boss over there? I don't know where to go. You know who I'm going to go to? I'm going to go to Tulsi Gabbard because I can trust her.
Right. They do trust her because of what she's doing. She's the one producing results, just as you said. And they're not going to trust the agency who has, I almost used a bad word on the air, that has treated their whistleblowers with contempt.
Yeah, you asked why is this story important, and my hesitation was simply because I thought, well, should I say that on air? But part of the reason the Corey Mills story is important, and all these stories are important, is because we need to know exactly how many people in Washington, D.C. Are assets, either formally or effectively, of some part of our government or other governments. And this is a big issue. If you have an administrative state, don't take this in a sort of conspiratorial way, but if you have an administrative state that's in charge of dispensing, trillions of dollars, billions and billions every year, and it wants to survive, it doesn't want anything to attack it, right? People want to keep their jobs. A small fraction of that could go, be laundered to help someone run for office in Congress, right?
Right.
A small fraction of that could ensure that you would control the votes of someone in Congress. The levers are tiny. You don't even need to do that much for a lot of these people. In fact, you would ensure that Congress was always feckless and would always do your bidding. And you have all the resources in the world to do that. You have money. You have technology that allows you to see a lot of things that most people aren't allowed to see. And this story about how the agenda is implemented, how the mandate is implemented, is a story about if you can overpower that administrative state. And if it's the case, people are learning this now. USAID, right? People are learning like, oh my gosh, all that money went to all this media stuff, and that really had an impact. And so the question here is, can you actually overturn this thing when it's so big, and when you go in, there's only a few people who are good? So in other words, the problem isn't just like the Trump administration doesn't select the right people. There aren't right people in that apparatus. You put a few right people in there, and they're in the middle of the darkness. They're in the middle of thousands of people who are actually just working for that apparatus. So someone like Tulsi comes in with courage, and then all of a sudden you are going to have whistleblowers coming to her because she just doesn't care. She's actually trying to do the job.
Right.
But what everyone has to ask themselves is, who, as we move forward and there's less and less excuse to actually structurally change things, who isn't acting? Because if they're not acting, right, if they're not actually moving forward to restructure these agencies, then you have to ask why, and we have to ask some really tough questions. And we have to explain. We all want to know, how does this thing operate? Are people being blackmailed in D.C. Right? That kind of stuff. And that's why I think Mills is ultimately important, because he's sort of like a doofus in some ways, right? He's not very good, as you say, at some of what he does. But you imagine that if there's a lot smarter people, as you said, what's going on there, that they'd be a lot worse. They would appear on Fox News. They would say the right thing, but in fact, they would actually be operating against the interests of the American people.
I want to just say a couple of more things about Tulsi Gabbard, the director of the National Intelligence right now, is that when we go back a few years and we look at her voting record, before she ran for president, it was not good. In terms of, like, we look at these, think tanks that have all the scoring systems, she ranked below Hillary Clinton in terms of her voting record. She was left of Hillary. She was left of Joe Biden in her voting record. And suddenly she's the star of MAGA right now, the star of the America First agenda. Well, the way that her team explains that to me is that the politics don't exist in her job. And this is their words, she doesn't care which way the truth goes. She's just intent on getting the information out to the American people, and whatever it reveals, it reveals. Now, we talked about look, we all have our bias. We all have our bent. We lean one way or the other. We talked about earlier in this show being on the same team with some of the people that are disappointing us in Congress. I don't know philosophically if I'm on the same team with Tulsi, but I want to be the same type of person in my job and in my investigative journalism, is that I don't care where the truth takes me at the end of the day. And I've said this even about January 6th. I don't care whether it takes me to Trump's desk, Pelosi's desk, Mark Milley's desk, or all the above, just as long as I find where the truth is.
I will say, I think that you do have a lot of those characteristics in you that Tulsi does. And one of the things that I'm noticing just with Tulsi, you, all of us, well, Tulsi Gabbard, she was called a Russian agent by Hillary Clinton.
That's right.
She was put on the Quiet Skies program and saying, oh, you need extra air marshals to go follow you around when you're at the airport. So she's seen the weaponization of government come directly at her. You have seen the full force of the United States government come down on you after January 6th. So there are a lot of things. Like, we are just here trying to get the stories out to everybody, no matter where they go, right? It's not that we had an idea of where we were going to end up, even like with like the Corey Mills story, right? Like, when I came over to your house, I was like, listen, Radical Mufti, not looking great. But you said, well, maybe there's an explanation for this, right? Like, maybe there's a reason. But what we're just trying to do here is get to the bottom of the actual truth, no matter where it goes. And I think that's why all of us here are just so passionate and trying to figure out, like, what is the next step? What is the next investigation that we want to go do and bring to everybody here in the audience?